What's up, everybody? My name's Chance, and today we're going to be knocking out the 10th FNM podcast, and we're going to be talking about Standard 2021 Ranked, the new format, and the new season that's coming up. So, today, as always, I'm joined with MTG Jeff and HGG.
How's it going, everybody? Number 10. Man, we've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, it's like a fifth of a year.
It goes by quick.
Sweet.
So we've all pretty much been diving into this format, testing it out, so our viewers could have a new lay of the land, and we could have a good feel of what's to come. I personally, I'm not one that plays ranked a whole lot. My viewers know this. Y'all probably know this. I've been enjoying this ranked format, though. I've been seeing a lot of different things, and even though I see a lot of recurring things, adventures and cycling and whatnot, even in those decks, I'm seeing, not just Teamer adventures, I'll see Sultai adventures or Golgari or Azorius. I've been seeing different layouts of the same decks, and so that, in the very least, is nice, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's been a lot of interesting things with, first off, Standard 2021 is in preparation for the rotation to happen. Rotation is coming with Zendikar Rising, and we are going to have Guild of Ravnica Allegiance, War of the Spark, and Core Set 2020 leave Standard. They will still be a part of Historic, but then we will have just Throne of Eldraine, Theros Beyond Death, Ikoria Lair Behemoths, Core Set 2021, and Zendikar Rising, in Standard there. Standard 2021, I'm really glad they did this for Arena. They didn't do this during last rotation, but they just kind of set up a format for us to be able to play that is only the cards that are going to be available for the next set and going forward and everything like that. So really exciting. With that update at the same time, they also released a bunch of new starter decks. And I wanted to kind of dive into this really quick because this is actually really important. We almost got a small set. Like it almost feels like a historic anthology. Within those starter decks, they released a bunch of powerful cards and cards that were available in past ones, like M19 cards, some Dominaria cards. Those are actually all showing up in the starter decks as well. Which everything in the starter sets are available to play in anywhere on Arena, first off, but they're available in Standard 2021. They will always be available to play. If you want to look up what cards those are and see what it is, there's a way to search it up. You type in set, SET, and then colon the 2 dots, A and B, Alpha Nancy Bravo. And so that set A and B, you can also search up A, and that has a couple of the ones that were previous, but A and B will actually give you the full look at all the different cards that are there. You should have a good chunk of these because they were given to you in the starter deck, but there are a few that you may want to be looking into. And there's a bunch of new cards that are available, and it does shake up the format a little bit outside of just whatever sets are already there. But this is part of the reason I feel like that Standard 2021 is so exciting and fun, is because we basically got a new... I don't even know how many new cards are available in this set. It's a lot, though. It's not a full set, but probably like 100 new ones, and probably like 25 that are like worth mentioning as like good cards that are actually playable. Things like Gigantosaurus, the 5-mana 10/10. The card that I'm really excited or it was interesting to see was Raid Bombardment, which is 3-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature you control with power 2 or less attacks, it deals 1 damage to target player, planeswalker that creature's attacking. So we basically got Cavalcade of Calamity again, but for 3 mana instead of 2 mana. But it also helps out with creatures power 2 or less rather than 1 or less. Anyway, I don't want to dive into like each individual card, but I just want to kind of lay down like the weight of like what just happened here. And I feel like a lot of people haven't really recognized or know that this exists still. And it's a big deal. It is a very big deal, and there's a lot of new cards, and this will change up the format for... kind of like, there's some cards in here that are powerful enough to see play, I would say, throughout as long as they are a part of Standard. So really exciting stuff there. What are your guys' thoughts or takes away on this set here, and also just where Standard 2021 is right now? Why is it exciting?
A little shout out real quick to HGG. If you're enjoying the starter decks, he's been doing upgrade guides on all of them, and they're really good, actually. It's reminded me of the LVD when I first started watching Magic, and he did basically these same guides. But HEG, go check out his guides if you're enjoying the starter decks.
Thank you. Quick note. I believe that you mentioned the new cards that have the arena symbol in them, the A, and how to search that. That's amazing. I was actually looking for that the other day. But I'm pretty sure that these cards, like you said, won't rotate. They're always going to be standard legal, but it's only standard best of one. I'm
Yes.
pretty sure that they're not legal in standard best of three, so you'll always be able to use them in historic and always be able to use them in best of one. And then again, if you're a beginner, that's not really an issue because you're probably going to be playing best of one for a while anyways. And as far as those new decks go, I was pretty impressed. Like, I ran through them all. We upgraded them all. I liked them like exponentially more than the last set of starter decks that we got. You know, the rares that they kind of weaved in there for everybody who is a beginner, doesn't have that full collection. These are brand new cards for them potentially. There's some really nice mythics in there as well. And it's not like every deck had all of them that you want to keep. Some of them are kind of useless, but they made sure to put like one or two at least that were really high priority for everybody's collection in each deck, which I really, really appreciated.
So it looks like to me that they are available. Yeah, like I said, just in standard best of one, and of course, mostly. I think of the main reasons that they're trying to keep them mostly ready for standard 2021, because I think these are the starter sets for the next set coming out. They just kind of released them a little bit early. Is the way I think that it's working out. I'm hoping that then they'll be available for best of three play afterwards, because I mean, some of these cards are powerful enough that it's like it would be a shame to not be able to play them in traditional standard, or just to kind of have them as part of the full format. But who knows what Wizard decides to do with that?
Yeah, I've actually been trying to go through and make decks with a lot of these cards that we were seeing here. Mardu Outrider is a great one. One of those new ones, too. I don't think we've had it in a previous set on Arena, so it's nice to have something new, like you say, with Raid and Bombardment and all that. Something new for us older players that's like, oh, hey, wait, like I came back off vacation and was literally just scrolling through making decks, and I was like, what is this card? What is this symbol? I've seen this symbol before, but these are like all new things. And there was nothing. There was no announcement or anything. It was just like, ah, here you go. You should just know. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no previews there. We're talking about a couple of really cool cards. One that comes to the top of my mind is Hollowed Priest. We were losing a Johnny, right? And I had a lot of people pretty concerned about that. They focused
Johnny
all on their wild cards. Yeah, that Johnny's Pride Made. And they spent a lot of wild cards on Linden and Helioid, and they're pretty worried now that a Johnny's leaving because that's a big part of the deck. And I think Strength of the Pride is leaving as well, right? The Ajani's Planeswalker who makes Ajani's.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that's leaving as well. So Hollowed Priest is going to be filling a lot of voids within life gain decks.
yeah, I actually recently made a mono white ranked deck that I played today, and it's got Hollowed Priest in it. And I gotta say, it actually felt pretty good. That's the thing that I'm really enjoying about the standard 2021 rank so far is I've been going through making these mono color decks, and like I said, I'm going to be doing all the monoed and dual colors and whatever. All the decks have felt pretty solid, and like I played a mono black deck. It was a mid-range deck, and it felt too slow. But there's a mono black aggro deck with Mardu Outrider, with Hunted Nightmare, with Demonic Embrace that I know already works, so I wasn't too concerned about it. I was trying something different, but it's nice to know that so far every color has a leg in the race,
absolutely.
I think maybe the mono blue was the least powerful in my opinion. I really needed to connect all the pieces together, and if there was some removal, it wasn't so hot there. But again, I think that really just comes down to everybody's individual play style and what they're most comfortable with and all that, right?
Yeah, and at least for newer players, which I'm assuming are the ones playing standard 2021 ranked more so right now, because I know a lot of older players are focused on historic with what's it called having just came out, Amonkhet, right? It's very easy for them to get sort of sucked into the new player traps of repetition and habit and watching a content creator and then just washing, rinsing, and repeating whatever they're doing. So I think some of the players that we're up against and some of the players that you guys and girls will be up against, you know, probably look for those habits. It's very easy if you're interested in getting into rank now to get into it and start watching the habits. You know, if you're one of those people like HG always talks about that want to be good and it's all about experience, learn the meta now while it's very, very tiny. So whenever the next set gets added, you're not like, okay, well, now I have to learn 600 cards instead of just 200.
Yeah. That I completely agree, and that's one of the things that's nice about rotation. It's a good time for new players to be jumping in, and so if you are a newer player, instead of trying to jump into historic right away or full standard or whatever, 2021 is definitely the place to be. And while we've been talking about some of the newer cards, now let's actually dive into a little bit of what are we actually seeing in standard 2021. What are some of like the decks to be aware of, decks that are good, and also maybe some like fringe decks that people maybe are sleeping on.
So cycling.
I seen an influx. Okay, so doctor says cycling, and I see it, but it doesn't bother me, so I'm not focused on it. I'm so sick of Lucky Clover into petty theft. The doubling of Brazen Border's petty theft is like, oh man, it almost sends me into cardiac arrest when it happens. It's so bad. And then they've got the Bone Crusher Giant as well. It just is like so much value. And if you're running a counter deck, you just good luck because you can counter one, but even if you counter the original, the copies still fire off, and it's just like it's overwhelming. So I've adopted, due to this newfound hate of Lucky Clover and the adventure cards that go on top of it, Whirlwind of the Nile, counter target spell, activated ability, triggered ability, or whatever, unless they pay 4 for each one on the stack. So we can finally put an end to some of these copied adventure spells, which everybody apparently seems to be so fond of.
It's definitely the deck that has proven itself most consistently throughout a bunch of different um, like ever since adventures came out, they were just one of the most like valuable cards ever. And the Lucky Clover deck and adventures, the Teamer Adventure has been around basically since then, which is always surprising whenever a deck that comes with just its sets mechanics actually comes out and performs really well. And Wizards has actually been pushing the mechanics pretty heavily, I think, these last couple of times. That's why we're seeing cycling being so powerful, seeing Team Adventures staying around through all this stuff. And now that we've moved to an even smaller standard, those perform even better because they're not being counteracted by as much value from other places. Mutate is another one that I feel like is on the verge of being really, really powerful, just because it does really explosive things. And I feel like the Mutate, Auspicious Strix, Genesis Ultimatum into Ugin is still a pretty powerful way. Like having like the Simic, maybe Teamer Mutate, having it focus on getting to Ugin as the top end is pretty powerful. The one big issue with Ugin, though, is what I was noticing is it's really good in the previous format, but with this, Lucky Clover does not hit. Cycling, it doesn't even affect cycling whatsoever. As long as they have stuff in the graveyard, I mean, maybe it'll exile the things that are on the board and not put them into the graveyard, but really does not quite affect that matchup enough. So Ugin is one of those cards like I feel like it should be game ending, but with what's in the format right now, that's not as much the deal. So yeah, cycling. I feel like that's the one issue with cycling. Is cycling the hardest part with it is in a best of one format. It's really hard to slot in a bunch of cards that answer it. Which the best ways to answer cycling or and to answer cycling is just graveyard removal. Just making sure that their graveyard doesn't have a bunch of cycling, so that Zenith Flare is completely shut off. They do have, they can grow a wide board. They do have a bunch of other win conditions outside of just Zenith Flare, but that is the main reason why it's powerful is because Zenith Flare is such a big life swing of gaining them life and causing them to make you lose a bunch of life as well. But so like I found that like that's one of the hard things though. So you're saying slotting in Whirlwind Denial to be able to answer the Teamer Adventures deck, which I agree. I think that's good. It's hard to always be playing blue. What are some answers for cycling? I'm thinking the best one was like Tormod's Crypt, I guess, is now a pretty easy slot in. But is that actually worth playing
I like the Soul God Lantern. It's 1 mana instead of 0, but if all else fails, you can pay 1 extra mana and draw a card, so it can at least cycle itself in your deck. And it still costs 0, and ultimately after you get it down to exile the opponent's graveyard. So I like Soul God Lantern a little bit more. Also, I'm noticing.
I think cycling.
Go ahead.
I think it's really easy to deal with for almost every color. The thing is that cycling plays primarily in best of one, and a lot of what deals with cycling efficiently, is a dead card in much of the other matchups. So, a lot of people aren't running it main board unless they're super annoyed with cycling, like I am with Lucky Clover for denial. But I think there's a lot of go-tos. Like black has a ton of graveyard exiling. Greens, got the ooze and stuff. Narset for blue, or colorless, like you talked about with Soul Guide Lantern, which is available to everybody. So, I think cycling is great, but I think it's easier to deal with. However, people aren't putting emphasis on dealing with it in their main board, and we're not really seeing a lot of people running the Soul Guide Lanterns, for example, which I think is probably your best bet because you can just sack it to draw a card later on, and it fits in every deck, right? So
2 mana to redraw is not a terribly expensive price if you're only running 2 or 3 of them in the deck. That's not too bad of a slot to have. That does almost completely shut down the cycling deck. And I agree. I think that's one of the biggest issues. That cycling is one of those where you run into it often enough in this format that you need to be having those slots available for Soul Guide Lantern, which is really cheap to run, by the way. It's I think it's an uncommon. So it's an uncommon, so it won't take too much to get 2 copies of those. I don't think you need more than 2 copies unless you're running into cycling all the time. That should just about cover it. What are some other ways to deal with Teamer Adventures? Teamer Adventures is Lucky Clover is a hard thing to deal with. Once it's on the board, the amount of value that they get overall just becomes obnoxious. So how would you guys say you go about taking care of that?
Gem Razor's my go-to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically the same as cycling. Yeah, you have to slot in specific cards. You just need to, in my mono white life gain, Heliod's Intervention, right? 2 white and then pay X, and you can destroy target artifacts or enchantments. Once you have the Lucky Clover offline, and don't get me wrong, adventure spells are always going to have an edge of being both a spell and a creature, so they sort of get 2 cards in one. If you can stick to what you're doing enough, so if it's a life gain deck, gain the life and go big with your counters and all that, and press in, eventually you'll be bigger than their giants. You'll be bigger than what their creatures can remove. And yes, they have the bounce. The nice thing with life gain decks is you can always regain the life. So basically, Teamer Adventures are overwhelming because there's so much efficiency within their deck. If you can just take a notch or 2 out, there's not too much power because the creatures have limited power. The Beanstalk Giant is the biggest force on the battlefield, but that can be removed with one, I'll miss the name now. Not Eliminate, the other 2 mana.
Heart's Desire.
Yeah. It's really easy to take out these cards individually, and it's not like they're flooding the battlefield with them. The most annoying part is how they all work so keyly together. So if you can take out a peg or 2, a chink in the armor, I feel like you got a lot better chance with almost any deck. It's just anytime you see an influx into the meta of any 1 or 2 decks, you got to start crafting your own decks, here and there, the sort of flavor cards of your decks to go against them, right?
I love that. And I think there is a lot of power within kind of trying to learn this skill and apply it to your experience with the game, because we can all pull lists and play these great decks, but people adapt and they jump on the bandwagon of that very quick. So the meta swings pretty aggressively, where large portions of people are playing a specific deck that they deem to be the best over all of the other decks. So if you can identify that switch taking place within the meta, because you're getting smashed by this deck 3 out of 4 times, identify it, throw some of those flavor cards in. You know, we've seen Helioid Intervention mentioned there, a really easy card, Return to Nature, right? Destroy artifact, destroy enchantment, exile target card from graveyard. So that is kind of like a coverall for us when we talked about dealing with the cycling and now dealing with the clovers and stuff, and even potentially, you know, enchantments down the road. So Return to Nature is another great card. I mean, you can go jank, and there's like other stuff as well. Thrashing Brontodon seems pretty applicable, but again, Return to Nature can kind of fit anywhere. Thrashing Brontodon, you know, now you're limited to just mono green for that. The decision to throw 4 copies of a card that directly counters it into your deck, and I think if you can do this, you'll see it pay off, and you'll become more confident within it, and be able to now identify swings or changes within the meta or your play environment, to again take maybe some of those cards out that aren't working anymore because it's changed again, and now maybe you need to run a counter spell or something, or like, I don't know, whatever the situation calls for. So I think that's a really good skill to get in on.
Another thing I'm noticing is we still have board wipes, but we only have like 4 of them, 5 of them tops, and they're all pretty restrictive. We used to have Kaya's Wrath, which was a little bit open, and was it Tom something, Tom Wrap, Tom Warp something?
Time Wipe.
Yeah, Time Wipe, there we go. But now if you look in there, we have Extinction Event.
Which is so good.
Yes, it is very good, but again, it's a mono-colored like thing of removal. We have or Extinction Event's just 4, right? It's just 1 color cost.
1 black for
Okay.
3 colorless, yeah.
That's not bad. But we have Storm's Wrath, which is 2. We have the white one, which I can't remember, Wrath of God or
Shatter.
something like that. Shatter the Sky. Yeah.
Yeah, Wrath is a historic card from Amonkhet, which is destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated.
Yeah.
And Storm, power 4 or greater, draws a card, destroy all creatures.
Yeah, there we go. Shadow the Sky. But yeah, there's like 4. There's like 4 board wipes in all of Standard 2021, and this is after a meta, a very creature heavy meta in comparison to the previous sets and all that. So what do y'all think about that? Like, do y'all think we're actually going to dial back on a lot of this board wipe, or do you think that this next set's about to have maybe 2, 3, 4 board wipes in it?
Well, we have Cast Off, right? The adventure from Realm Cloaked Giant, destroy all non-giants, which is basically like a field wipe. And then we're also going to have Ruinous Ultimatum as well, right? Destroy all permanents your opponent controls, which is expensive, but nonetheless, it's getting rid of some stuff.
I mean, Shadow the Sky is still in it as well. I mean, that's not going away.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, I'd mentioned
Yeah,
Shatter.
we lose
Yeah, yeah.
Cry, we lose Ritual, we lose Deafening Clarion.
We lose Asker Girl. We lose a
Planar
lot of
Cleansing,
the,
I
like,
think, goes, right?
Yeah.
Storm's Wrath, Shadow of the Sky. Storm's Wrath is probably the biggest one I would say that is. I mean, outside of white, there's not a ton. I would say that just because they always have something, and I think black is losing all of its, like besides Massacre Worm, maybe it's losing any board wipes in black. And so I would say that black will probably get one, just because I've found that they tend to be consistent with like making sure colors have their different things available.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that black is probably going to get some sort of board wipe. I would say white does not, because it already has a 4 mana one. And then is Flame Sweep leaving? I can't remember if Flame Sweep is. So Flame Sweep is 2020. So yeah, so Flame Sweep will be gone. So I would say that red will probably get or another like instant speed, some sort of damage dealer, just because those are cards that tend to always be in the format somehow. We'll see though. I'm really excited for Zendikar Rising. Did you guys see the teaser trailer that came out recently?
It was very much a teaser.
Yeah. There was nothing really good in there or anything like that. For those of you guys who don't know the schedule as far as Zendikar Rising coming, so 2021, that's when rotation actually happens. It's coming up pretty soon. Spoilers for Zendikar Rising begin the 1st of September. So just a couple days after this podcast will be out. we will start having Zendikar Rising stuff going along. Yeah, and so I mean, there's usually about 2 weeks or so of spoilers, and then you have a week of knowing what everything is, and then things start coming out. So that's
Do you
basically the
guys?
schedule now.
I don't mean to interrupt our schedule, but do you guys feel prepared for Zendikar? Are you ready for it?
I'm stoked. I'm so ready for it. I'm always down for new sets to come.
I'm never ready. I'm always stoked, but I'm never ready.
I'm also stoked, but incredibly nervous. And like you just mentioned how spoilers start in like less than a week, because like this does get filmed a couple of days early for you guys, so it can come out on Friday. But for the content creators like us three, and there's many more, right? There is so much work going on during the spoilers and the pre-release events. Your boys be hustling. We're talking long days, and a lot of new information. Like, because we do our best to review these cards and map them out and kind of predict how the meta is going and fit everything in its appropriate spot and build new things. It's just like all getting done in like a week.
It's a lot of work. It always is. For me, I've been really glad that between Jumpstart and Amonkhet for these between course of 2021 and then now to Zendikar Rising, usually the game gets a little bit stale right around this point where it's like, all right, we know it's coming soon. I've already built 67, maybe 100 new decks for Standard and maybe a couple for Historic, and I'm getting exhausted of those formats. With Jumpstart and Omnicat coming out, as well as just these new cards coming in with AMB and them creating Standard 2021, they've done a really good job of just keeping it interesting. Like I feel like I've never even had a break of the amount of creativity. It's like when I was like, man, there's so many decks that I've just not been able to get to so far, and I know with Zendikar Rising,
We won't be able
more
to.
things coming in. Yeah, it's one of those where it's like and it's been hard on the pocketbook a little bit too with all the different cards to get, all that kind of stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I've been dropping a little bit more than I typically do, making sure we get Amonkhet, and then buying extra Amonkhet to make sure I actually have wild cards for more Jumpstart cards, all that kind of stuff. It's like it gets pricey, and I know that a lot of other people out there feel it too. I think that's why it's exciting to have Standard 2021 be available, where it's like it's actually interesting to play right now. It's actually something that I also have all the cards for it, so it's not like I have to go digging, whatever. So that's something that's been really nice. I'm glad. I hope they consistently find like little formats like this to freshen things up. I think that while they are getting MTG Arena towards Pioneer, there's always going to be some sets coming out in Historic, basically up until Pioneer like actually hits. And so I don't know. I think that'll keep Arena interesting, keep the game alive and going. But I also hope that Standard 2021, especially with smaller sets, a lot of cards we've already played with for a long time now. A lot of the cards in Adventures, Mutate, Cycling, a lot of these mechanics and cards work really well within themselves and not so much outside of themselves. And so it's one of those like you're going to be really tired of Team Adventures once the next rotation comes around, basically. And so I'm hoping that Zendikar Rising comes in and creates enough interesting stuff to be able to snag all these other things that are coming in and hopefully make them fun and interesting enough.
Well, on the flip side of that, Jeff, I've actually been kind of enjoying my stroll down memory lane, seeing all the like old sets from the past. And like you said, a lot of these sets, they've been more thematic, we'll say, right? Like all within themselves. So it's kind of nice whenever, Mutate comes up, oh yeah, Ikoria, and then Team Adventures, oh yeah, Eldraine. Happy that Cat hasn't came back though. Happy to never see that one again.
I did play a Golgari food deck, and without the Cat, it's very different. Wicked Wolf though, definitely a card I think a lot of people are sleeping on. It's still very, very powerful and does good stuff against what everyone else is doing.
Your love for Wicked Wolf actually came up in my chat the other day. People were talking about it. Yeah, they're like, man, Jeff likes Wicked Wolf so much.
It's a good card. It's powerful. I think it's one of those cards that like it's really hard because you have to be playing something around food to make it worthwhile. And the issue right now is that the only things that are worth playing with food consistently is Gilded Goose, and that's kind of it. You know, like there's not like other things that you play that make food. Maybe Ginger Brew in like the Golden Egg type of thing. And I think that package, you can maybe make that package in Wicked Wolf work just by itself. But so I don't know. I think it's an interesting card. Wicked Wolf definitely has to have a bunch of other cards put into it to make it work, and that they don't always exist cohesively.
It actually used to see like top tournament play Wicked Wolf like pretty
Yeah.
consistently when it first came out. It was
because it worked really
badass.
well with Oko. So that
Yeah.
was the biggest thing. It was huge when Oko was around because you always had food. It was an indestructible thing that got up to be a 10-10 and turned your elks into dead elks. You know, type of thing. It was a really powerful card. And so that's the main reason it stopped seeing play is because Oko's gone now. Which I mean, thank goodness. But
yeah, that was a whole flash, wasn't it?
I miss the elk jokes. Like you
I
didn't even
know,
have to make a joke. You could just yell elk and it was good enough.
How long did that even last before it was banned? It wasn't that long, but I remember it was too long even still.
It was at least 2 months.
Was it 2 months? I was thinking like
It was
maybe
a
a month.
while.
It
There's
felt
so many
a lot longer.
memes.
But again, we are content creators. We are in the grind every single day. We're playing this game way more than people should do healthily.
It felt like a long time.
But yeah, so Oko, yeah, that was good. There's a lot of cards. I kind of wonder or would like to see maybe like some other cards come back even. Like I know like historic they've offered up suspension.
So like as far as other
Yeah.
decks,
Yeah. I think he froze. All right. As far as decks go, the different decks that are out there. So yeah, we've been talking a little bit about cycling, mutate, team adventures. What are some other decks that are out there? Is there a good aggro deck? I've submitted a couple recently on my channel.
Oh yeah, I mean Annex and Embercleave, those are still legal. Torbrand's still legal. Mono Red, even Gruul, right, with Embercleave, still have some power.
What kind of decks are you guys seeing predominantly within the standard 21?
Here, we'll get him back here in a bit. I think, but just as you were saying, yeah. So sorry, we keep losing to HCG. That's why we're not trying to just like talk over you. So yeah, I think like you were saying, Annex, Torbrand, Embercleave are still a part of it. I think that Raid Bombardment adds to that as well. I put a deck together that didn't have Annex, but it still was performing really well for me. I think that if Zendikar Rising gives us like even any good red pieces, mono red is always a good deck because red deck wins. It's because if your focus is just to get people's life total down to 0, cards are meant to do that, pretty well. And so that's what you do. I think that a mono green Stompy deck is pretty good as well. I think that the only thing we're lacking is really good early game ramp. We do still have Gilded Goose as early game ramp. The 2-drop slot, I'm not sure exactly how powerful it is. We have the ballot or whatever it's called.
Yeah, you have that and Wolf Willow Haven, I think.
Yeah, Wolf Willow Haven, which is pretty powerful as well. And we have some big things to get up to. Questing Beast not going away. Elder Gargaroth, a busted new card that is not going to be going away for a long time.
Garrick's Harbinger is one that people have been sleeping on. 3 mana, 4/3 that can draw you a Garrick's Planeswalker or a creature.
Yeah, it's definitely powerful, and not only that, but Garruk itself is a really powerful planeswalker. Like the planeswalker is great. The Golgari version of Garruk is not going away, which I think is a very powerful card as well. You know, like that one's sticking around. Yeah, well, actually, what planeswalkers are sticking around?
I mean, the mono green version is brand new as well, so you got like 2 pretty solid planeswalkers in that Golgari area to grab with the Harbinger.
So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say how much I love the Harbinger. Such a sick card. It grabs the Garrick. The Garrick can put trample back on it, which can go through the defender. Combat damage triggers again. You get to draw another card. Good times.
Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of powerful planeswalkers still sticking around. Like I feel like all of us are so excited for the War of the Spark planeswalkers to leave, but we still have Basri Ket. We have Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis, which has not really been played a ton recently, but I feel like it's a powerful enough planeswalker to see play here and there. It just depends on the timing and where it's at. Teferi Master of Time is good. You know, the new Liliana, the new Chandra, I think it may be slept on for a while still. I think that there needs to be a good deck to really fit it. Luca, as soon as we find get Luca with Luca, I mean, I'm sure Zendikar Rising, the world of big creatures and ramp and all that kind of stuff will probably give us some pretty big hits with Luca as well. Garuk, Vivian is busted. Ashiok, Nightmare's Muse, you know, the Royal Scions. Calyx is still there. And then, of course, we can't forget Narset and Ugin. I mean, yeah, there's... Yeah,
we gotta send this guy to trivia night.
What's that?
I was just saying we gotta send you to trivia night. You got these on lock, bud. I think I like Chandra more than Liliana. I think.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I think that they're both weaker planeswalkers compared to a lot of other stuff we've seen.
Who are you most gonna miss? Leaf Standard as a planeswalker.
I know this is
say who I'm not gonna miss.
But Nissa, I am actually gonna miss. I know everyone else feels the exact opposite, but I actually really like Nissa. I'm glad that she's leaving because she was busted with Ugin. Like that was not okay, you know. But it was just it was a fun card, you know. Just it was an actual good planeswalker in green. Where I feel like with green, if I was going to do mono green stuff, yeah, I might splash in a planeswalker. I might, but for most part, I'm going towards creatures deck. It was kind of fun to like have a focus on actually getting a planeswalker out in a green creatures deck. You know, I like that. What about you, Doug?
I don't know. I'm pretty happy to see all the planeswalkers go. They've been like, you know, anytime I'm losing, you know what gets me the maddest? It's not the opponent popping up, yeah, you know, good game, your go. It's the planeswalkers like little chat thing, like I outsmarted you eons ago. Like, shut up, Nico. Fucking asshole. So I'm happy to see them all going, honestly.
That's like the 5-mana Teferi or whatever. I can't stand that guy's lines. It's just like stop. You know, there's a lot of them that
Oh god.
I'm glad that's out of the format for sure. Still.
Personally, I'm gonna be missing the big old Chandra, can't be countered. Field wipe for red. Keep all your elementals. Just put the emblem on for immediate death event, at least in whatever 10 turns at the most, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So I think that'll be missed. I'm really, really, really looking forward to. And when these spoilers come out, I think that's the first thing I'm going towards is anything that says protection from blue and can't be countered. Shifting Ceratops, I'm gonna miss big time. Okay. We had Carnage Tyrant beforehand, right? And we lost the Tyrant, and I was heartbroken. I was like, what am I going to do? Boom, Shifting Ceratops. It's even a dinosaur. Perfect, right? But now we're in the same boat again, and I need a dino, preferably with protection from blue, and can't be countered as well, is pretty cool.
Yeah,
we need something.
I'm looking at what will cause things to not be countered. There's only a few cards that can't be countered.
Yeah, I mean, Simic Flash is sort of disappearing out of Standard 2021 because a lot of the cards aren't coming with it, such as Frilled Mystic and just a lot of the instant speed stuff. Wilderness Wreck, right? All that stuff's being sort of tossed out. So hopefully we'll just see a general decline in all those counter spells on our creatures. But Aisha just said no, you won't. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like, especially with Teferi being gone, we're just going to see more and more counter spells and decks come in. I mean, yeah, that's the biggest thing is ever since Teferi, 3-mana Teferi, that was one nice thing about the 3-mana Teferi. Everything else was terrible about it, but the one nice thing about it was that it stopped counter spells being played quite as much. Now, I'm not sure if you've noticed it, but I've definitely seen a lot of, mono blue, Dimir Flash, counter your stuff all day long type of decks. Those are still definitely around. I mean, going towards 2021 versus versus the full play set, we definitely lose a lot of flash cards, but there's still a lot out there. So I don't know. We'll see exactly where the format actually ends up. Destiny Spinner.
I think Dimir Flash is in a healthy position right now.
Yeah. Dimir Flash is pretty good. I think I was looking at just mono green in general. Destiny Spinner, 2-mana, 2/3, already pretty solid stats from Theros Beyond Death, and it says creatures and enchantment spells you cast you control cannot be countered. So there is a way to do that. It also has some extra payoffs. I think that's a card that's been slept on quite a bit. That I think is very powerful, very good, and it's the biggest issue is just there's been too many other good 2-drops to play. But I was just barely looking at green now, and there are good 2-drops. You can play ramp there, you can play other stuff, but you may just want to be playing something like this, the Destiny Spinner, at least as a 2-of, to give protection, and also just for its stats. It's amazing blocker against most mono red decks. Pretty powerful. So I think that there's cards like these that didn't see as much play beforehand that will definitely start getting a little bit more picked up, and you'll see them a lot more often now as rotation comes around.
Yeah, that's actually one deck that I saw pop out that was like, nostalgia. A Selesnya enchantment deck. Somebody was playing Destiny Spinner and Setessan Champion, and it was like, for a split second, I was like, this is good. And then I was like, oh no, all that glitters, this is bad. But I think we can all agree we're excited for the new set. We're happy with this format that is like competitive, but also not super competitive. Not everybody in here, and it may be because we have a lot of newer players, but it seems like a lot of people are trying some newer stuff, and so I'm happy for finding that middle ground of competitiveness and playing new stuff, right? I always love that in Magic when I can play seriously, but have someone play seriously back, right? They're not going to concede on turn 3 because they're like, well, I didn't get the cards I want, so...
Right, yeah.
Those are always the best games where the power level isn't at 10 out of 10, right? It's like comboing you at turn 5, combo 15 more, right? It's like, this is good old-fashioned back and forth, each way. People had the resolve where it was.
Yeah.
Spell, right? It's like they go the mile. Whenever you do, and I'm sure you guys know that a lot more. Yes, seed if you're pushing to mythic, you're straight and you let it rip. But if you were just playing the game, you'd be surprised how many times I'm ready to concede. This is over. Like, game over. We lost. 2-3 turns go by. We're back on top. Yes, we may still lose, but the momentum of the games are not always so one-sided. Oh, he's got the game's over. They can be pushed back and forth multiple times. So I think there's something to be said for brew based around your collection, taking original creative to make it strong. It won't be as strong as the tier 1, how it is. And then do your best to win with it and create such play in or majority adapt the way we rather ultra competitive everybody run or decks I get it. That's kind of society we live in. But I would love tier 1 decks. I guess
Yeah.
platinum. Because I know that there are a lot of beginners stuck in gold. I can't get out. All I see top tier. People in gold playing tier 1 decks. Settle down, you guys. Go have some fun. There's so many in the game than the 100 that play. That's why I love personally, because it's taking those tier, right? They can't just go grab the best deck list tournament with this. It's like all of these cards aren't legal. I've got to somehow adjust that myself for the most deck list. But as a majority, not proven deck do with it. So I think a lot of people are willing to take that first step and start crafting for themselves, or at least is that they've had. That's why we're a little bit more of a diverse, friendly, less. I know it is less powerful because the card pool, you know, there are still top. We talked about like that. Like that's all lots of cool and fun to play against.
Yeah, so we talked about new decks, new cards, a new standard. Was there anything extra y'all wanted to touch on in this podcast? Anything new or old leaving? Any other?
No, I think we covered basically everything that I wanted to touch on with this one. Excited for Zendikar Rising to come out. The new set with the starter decks that came out, kind of all the new cards there, really cool. Just the hype that there is with this set too. Standard 2021 is an awesome set. Really excited for it. Glad to have something new and fresh, and I think that definitely comes with this. And I'm just excited to be jumping into what's coming with this new rotation.
Yeah.
I have a little bit of news. I suppose this could be an appropriate. It's not quite as exciting as, getting. But for me, it's kind of. Wizards has been kind enough to bless me with a card spoiler. So your boy, Hello Good Game, gets to spoil you guys a card in the coming weeks. I've got the date, but more to come. Just,
Nice.
Yeah, I got one as well, although I don't know if we are allowed to actually say that here, but we'll see.
I'll cut it.
Yeah, absolutely. I read on the email, we discussed it.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
Okay.
That we do have them.
Well, cool beans. Congratulations to you, man.
Alrighty, let's sign off.
Yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed week 10. Like I said earlier, 5th of the year. That's kind of crazy. I didn't even expect it to get past week 2, 3. But here we are, still doing it. We appreciate y'all's support as always. And the comments, the all that stuff is always nice. So if you're watching on my channel, go check out Jeff's, go check out HCG's, and leave them likes, leave them comments saying, hey, I came from the podcast, you rock, all that good positive energy.
Yeah, big shout out. We've got a lot of people from come check you out. So I really appreciate everybody across the platform, and don't be scared. Go hit them up.
All right, peace out.
See you guys.